So the other day we talked about factoring and solving quadratics a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those examples again to kind of reinforce some of the confusion that I felt was in the room. Okay, so one of the first things that we talked about was greatest common factor. Greatest common factor is going to be really important later because we're not going to be able to solve. But first, let's kind of go through just what is solving a quadratic in general. Okay, what is factoring a quadratic? So if I had x squared plus 15x plus 36, okay, and that's what I wanted to factor. What I'm asking is what can I multiply together to give me this? Okay, so I'm going to have this binomial expression. Okay, but right now I don't have it equal to anything. Okay, here in a second I will. So what we talked about was the big X. We talked about that being an option. So we said, okay, to factor this, to figure out exactly what I can put in these sets of parentheses, was I did, well, what multiplies, okay, to give me 36? So it was always A times C. So it was 1 times 36. So what multiplies to give me 36 and adds to give me 15? Okay, that's going to be your question. So it's up to you to be able to figure out how to do that. I will tell you that I showed you in the calculator one way to kind of cheat a little bit, to use your calculator to your advantage. If you will put in the calculator the A times C value and divide it by X, when you go to the table of values, the second graph, all of these are numbers that will multiply to give you 36. These are the factors of 36. Okay, so I can scroll up and down and I can figure out what numbers will multiply to give me 36. Okay, now if I can see in this process that 12 plus 3 will give me 15, okay, then I can just use that. But if you go back to Y2 and you say, okay, I want to add these two columns together, then you can say, all right, in Y2 I want to add the X column and the Y1 column. So the way we get to Y1 is we press vars, which is right here underneath that blue arrow. You go over to Y vars, you press enter, okay, and then when you press enter on the function key there, you get this list of all of these Y equations, and you want Y1, so just press enter again. So that is X plus Y1. So now when you go to the table, you're looking for the B value in this column, because these will multiply to give me 36, but they also have to add to give me 15. Alright, so we know that it's going to be 12 and 3. Alright, now that's a pretty basic example, but when we deal with bigger numbers, that's going to be a helpful process. Alright, so I have 12 and 3. So what I do is I put X plus 12 here and X plus 3 here. Now this is what we call factored form or intercept form. Okay, and that's important. Alright, some of you guys are not including that as part of your answer. This we want to see. Alright, this is factored form of this. Alright, but if this is equal to 0, and I set this equal to 0, then we have the zero principle. Okay, the principle of zero product. So that means if this guy right here is equal to 0, then that means 0 times whatever this is going to give me 0. Alright, so what could I plug in for X to give me 0? Well, that would be negative 12. So if I plug in a negative 12 into this equation, okay, and I can't plug in two different values here. I have to plug in a negative 12 there and a negative 12 there. If I plug in a negative 12, I get 0 times negative 9. Well, that's just going to be 0. Alright, so that's going to be one of my solutions. If I plug in a negative 3 in for X on this side, right here, okay, then I'm going to get 0 here, and I'm going to get a positive 9 there. That's still going to be 9 times 0 equals 0. So that's why we end up with two solutions. Now, let me go ahead and just mention, like, why do we have two solutions? What are we doing? Why are we factoring? What's the purpose of this? Remember, the shape of a parabola, okay, has that increasing and decreasing kind of movement. Okay, so we end up with parabolas that look like this. What you are finding, okay, when you set this equation equal to 0, is you're finding where the y value is 0. Where the y value is 0 on the x-axis. So that's why we're ending up with two answers, because we're ending up with two solutions because the quadratic is crossing the x-axis twice. That's why it's possible, okay, to only get one. I could have that point right there be touching. Okay. Okay, that's possible. And then you also have the possibility of this being flipped over. So you're still going to get two solutions there. And then the quadratic could be way up here. Okay, and if it doesn't touch the x-axis, then we're not going to get any solutions for that. Okay, so these are what you're finding whenever you're factoring.